Hey folks, in today's Conundrum we will cover the case of Robert Christian Hansen, also known as the Butcher Baker, who gained infamy as an American serial killer. Operating between 1971 and 1983 in Anchorage, Alaska, Hansen engaged in a horrifying spree of abductions, rapes, and murders, targeting at least 17 women. His preferred method involved hunting down his victims in the wilderness, armed with a Ruger Mini-14 rifle and a knife. The community lived in constant fear as he remained undetected for years. Hansen's crimes came to an end in 1983 when he was convicted and sentenced to 461 years in prison. Welcome back to Conundrum, where we delve into the minds and history of serial killers. If you like this type of content, please like, subscribe, and put the notification bell on so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you for being here. Robert Hansen, born on February 15, 1939, in Estherville, Iowa, had a troubled early life. He was the eldest child of Edna Margaret Hansen and Christian Chris Hansen. Robert worked at the family bakery alongside his father. In 1942, the family relocated to Richmond, California, but returned to Iowa in 1949, settling in Pocahontas. During his youth, Hansen struggled with shyness, a stutter, and severe acne that left him with permanent scars. Rejected by the girls he desired attention from, he developed a deep resentment towards them, nurturing dark fantasies of revenge. As he grew up, Hansen remained a quiet and solitary individual, finding solace in activities like hunting and archery. In 1957, Hansen joined the United States Army Reserve, serving for a year before receiving his discharge. He then became an assistant drill instructor at a police academy in Pocahontas, Iowa, where he formed a relationship with a younger woman. The two married in the summer of 1960. Robert Hansen's criminal activities began in December 1960, when he set fire to a Pocahontas County Board of Education school bus garage as an act of revenge against his high school peers. The arson resulted from his bitterness and unpopularity during his time in school. He was apprehended and subsequently sentenced to 3 years in Anamosa State Penitentiary, of which he served 20 months. While in prison, Hansen was diagnosed with manic depression and periodic schizophrenic episodes. The diagnosing psychiatrist described him as having an infantile personality and a strong obsession with seeking vengeance against those he believed had wronged him. During his incarceration, his wife filed for divorce, severing their relationship. After his release, Hansen had several encounters with the law for petty theft, leading to repeated jail terms. In 1967, he relocated to Anchorage, Alaska, with his second wife, whom he had married in 1963, and they had 2 children together. In Anchorage, Hansen built a reputation as a skilled hunter and enjoyed a favorable reputation among his neighbors. However, Hansen's criminal behavior escalated in December 1971. He was arrested twice within that month, first for attempting to abduct and rape a housewife, and later for the rape of a sex worker. He pleaded no contest to assault with a deadly weapon in the case involving the housewife, while the rape charge related to the sex worker was dropped as part of a plea agreement. Hansen received a 5-year prison sentence, but after serving 6 months, he was placed in a work release program and transferred to a halfway house. In 1976, Hansen was convicted of larceny for stealing a chainsaw from an Anchorage store. This incident led to a 5-year prison sentence, during which he received psychiatric treatment for his bipolar disorder. The Alaska Supreme Court eventually reduced his sentence, resulting in his release after serving the time already served. These events showcase the escalating criminal behavior and legal consequences that marked Robert Hansen's early life. The killing spree, spanning from 1971 to 1983 and painting a grim picture in American history, is one way or another tied to Robert Hansen. His first known victim, Celia Beth Van Zanten, an 18-year-old girl, went missing on December 22, 1971, after visiting a supermarket in Anchorage. Her body was discovered 3 days later, bound and sexually assaulted in Chugach State Park. Hansen denied responsibility for her death, but evidence suggests his involvement. Megan Siobhan Emmerich, a 17-year-old student, disappeared on July 7, 1973 in Seward. She was last seen leaving a dorm laundry room and never returned. Hansen admitted to being in Seward that day and claimed to have taken her to a secluded cabin, where he allegedly killed and buried her. Mary Kathleen Thill, a 22-year-old woman, went missing on July 5, 1975, in Seward. She was dropped off at a local bakery, but was never seen again. Hansen admitted to being in Seward on that day, but denied killing her. Suspicion arose due to an X marking on his aviation chart near Resurrection Bay. According to a former prisoner, Hansen confessed to killing Thill and disposing of her body in Resurrection Bay. Eklutna Annie, an unidentified young woman, was found buried near South Eklutna Lake Road in 1980. Hansen admitted to stabbing her after she attempted to escape his CE. Joanne Messina, a 24-year-old topless dancer, was last seen on May 19, 1980, in Seward. Hansen lured her with the promise of money for sex, and then shot her and her dog near the Snow River. Her decomposed body was found in a gravel pit in July 1980. Roxane Eastland, a 24-year-old woman, disappeared on June 28, 1980, from Anchorage. She was last seen planning to meet an unknown man downtown, but never arrived. Hansen admitted to killing her, although her body was never located. Lisa Futrell, a 41-year-old exotic dancer, was abducted by Hansen on September 6, 1980. She failed to return home after her shift at a nightclub, and her body was discovered buried near a gravel pit in 1984. Sherry Morrow, a 23-year-old topless dancer, vanished on November 17, 1981, after telling friends she was meeting a photographer. Her body was found in a shallow grave along the Nick River in 1982, bearing gunshot wounds to the back. The clothing she was buried in indicated she may have been naked when shot. Andrea Mona Fish Altieri, a 24-year-old woman, disappeared on December 2, 1981, after boarding a taxi in Anchorage. Hansen confessed to kidnapping, sexually assaulting, and shooting her before dumping her body into the Nick River. Her remains were never found. Sue Luna, a 23-year-old exotic dancer, agreed to a photo shoot with Hansen on May 26, 1982. She was abducted, hunted down, and shot to death in the Nick River area. Her body was discovered in 1984. Robin Pelkey, a 19-year-old woman, was found stabbed and shot near Horseshoe Lake in April 1984. Her identity was unknown until 2021, and it is unclear if she was involved in sexual activities, a common pattern in Hansen's victims. Delynn Sugar Renee Frey, a 22-year-old woman, was reported missing in March 1983, but was not immediately identified as a victim. Her body was found on a Nick River sandbar in August 1985. Paula Goulding, 30, was kidnapped by Hansen on April 25, 1983. She was driven to his aircraft, shackled, and threatened with a gun. Paula managed to flee, but Hansen shot and killed her with a rifle. Her body was found on September 2, 1983, buried in a shallow grave. Malai Larson, 28, went missing on July 10, 1981. Her body was discovered on April 24, 1984, in a parking lot near the Nick Arm Bridge. Teresa Watson, 22, was last seen on March 25, 1983. Hansen abducted and killed her at Scenic Lake. Her remains were found on May 17, 1984. Angela Lynn Fettern, 24, a dancer, disappeared in February 1983. Her body was found on April 26, 1984, near a small lake close to Figure 8 Lake. 20-year-old Tamara Tommy Pedersen, dancer at an Anchorage nightclub, was last heard from during a phone call on August 7, 1982. She mentioned being offered money for posing in photographs before she was kidnapped and killed by Hansen. After Hansen confessed, Tammy's body was found 1.5 miles from the Old Nick Bridge on April 29, 1984. On June 13, 1983, Robert Hansen abducted 17-year-old Cindy Paulson after offering her money for a sexual act. He took her to his home in Muldoon, where he raped and tortured her. Chained in the basement, she managed to escape while Hansen was occupied with loading his plane at Merrill Field Airport. Paulson fled, leaving her sneakers behind as evidence, and sought help from a passing truck driver, Robert Yunt. She was eventually found handcuffed at the Big Timber Motel. Detective Glenn Floth and FBI Special Agent John Douglas collaborated on a profile, leading them to suspect Hansen as the perpetrator based on Paulson's testimony and the recovered bodies of other women. A search warrant was obtained, and during the search of Hansen's property, incriminating evidence was discovered, including jewelry belonging to the missing women and an aeronautical chart with marks matching the locations of previous body discoveries. Hansen initially denied the evidence but eventually confessed, admitting to a series of attacks on Alaskan women since 1971. He was charged with assault, kidnapping, weapons offenses, theft, and insurance fraud. In a plea bargain, he pleaded guilty to 4 homicides and provided information on other victims. Hansen guided investigators to 17 grave sites, revealing 12 previously unknown locations. Despite some marks on his map that he refused to disclose, the remains of 12 victims were recovered. Hansen was sentenced to 461 years in prison without parole. He served time in various correctional facilities, including the United States Penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and the Spring Creek Correctional Center in Seward, Alaska. He died on August 21, 2014, at the age of 75, due to natural causes at the Alaska Regional Hospital in Anchorage. In conclusion, the case of Robert Hansen serves as a chilling reminder of the victims who tragically lost their lives. Let us remember those affected by these heinous acts and honor their memory. Thank you for watching this video, and we hope you found it informative. I am Alex, and this is Conundrum. Stay curious and stay safe.